Hi, this is Kit, and I am going to make a fruit galette today in honor of the Feast of St. Catherine. So here's the end product. It obviously came out pretty nice looking, but I've never done this before, so this is actually my very first time. So this is the ingredients you'll need in order to make 6 small, individual sized galettes. So 2 sticks of butter you take out of the refrigerator and you chop them up into chunks. Tablespoon, a little over a tablespoon or so. So those are going on the plate, and then you take the 1.5 cups of water and the 3/4 teaspoons of salt. You put that together, and then you put everything in the freezer for 10 minutes. So meanwhile, you measure out the all-purpose flour. So that is 2.5 cups. And galette is made on the counter with a pastry scraper and a roller. So definitely not a technique that I'm familiar with. So here we go. So it's pretty messy, and I'm type A despite having 4 children, and I don't like making messes. So I've never wanted to do something like this, but actually once you kind of squeeze out those initial chunks of butter and get them going flat, it goes relatively smoothly from there. So you just kind of keep rolling to flatten the butter chunks, and then you use the pastry scraper to scrape everything back together again. So once everything's flattened, you add the water little by little into like the middle of the mixture, and then you cut everything together as it's happening here, and get this really shaggy dough coming. It does not look like it will ever form a dough for a while. And I was like, there's not enough water in this to form a dough. This is impossible. But then as you see, time goes by, and it does start making a really well-balanced pastry dough. So you just keep rolling it out into the rectangle, and it will eventually form better and better. You'll keep folding it in the envelope package. And then once you are at your final piece, you want it to be about 10 inches by 14 inches or so. So that's where we are here. And then it moves over onto a pastry parchment paper, and it goes into the fridge to chill for 1 hour. At least an hour, because you need to keep the butter solid instead of liquefying at room temperature. So once that comes out, you can divide it into the 6 equal squares or so. And then at this point, you're shaping them into round pieces, which you can see I struggle with quite a lot. I think by the end, I got the hang of what you were supposed to do, but this first one's pretty bad looking. Pretty sorry and pathetic looking. But yeah, eventually you're supposed to get about a 6-inch circle or so, loosely, of this dough. And no matter what I do, it just keeps going into a square formation. So you'll take all 6 of those, make them into circles, 6 to 7 inches or so wide. And then those rounds will go back in the fridge to chill, because again, the butter has warmed with this rolling out, and you want it to remain as solid as possible. So see, I'm starting to learn. That one's coming together a little bit better. The last 2 here. Now I should mention, I guess you can do this with fresh fruit, but I have a lot of homemade peach pie filling that I canned last summer from peaches in my own backyard here in Denver, Colorado. So I wanted to use that prepared filling for this. So you can kind of see the flash of the jar there. Oh, here I'm setting out everything that I'm going to need to make an egg wash. So the egg wash will give it like a glossiness at the end. So I'm taking the yolk of an egg. So I'm pulling the white aside to use in scrambled eggs later or something else. Waste not, want not. And yep, just straining that white as carefully as I can until I have just the egg yolk and then I'm going to portion that off. Now, I'm kind of neurotic when it comes to washing my hands after handling an egg, so that's what I'm doing right now. And I didn't cut this out of the video, so congratulations to me for being lazy. So when I eventually come back from washing my hands, I'm going to get a tablespoon of half and half and add it to the egg yolk. It'd probably be even better if I had a heavier fat, like a heavy whipping cream, but I don't have that in my fridge right now. I do have half and half, so that's what we're going to use for the egg white. So again, going to get a little fork out and whip that all together to emulsify it into a beautiful yellow mixture that will be ready to paint over my galettes. So again, neurotically washing my hands possibly. Oh, and here are our little tarts. Now this is the home canned peaches that I am using instead of using like a fresh fruit. I guess if you use fresh fruit, you just sprinkle it with sugar in order for it to break down and be sweeter in the out of the oven. But with this, I don't need to really do much. I'm just going to use a little bit of sprinkling sugar at the end. So you just pile up a little bit of that fruit in the center, and then you fold the shells awkwardly around the center. So it's like a little free-form pie there. You just want to make sure that it's sort of loosely pinched so the filling doesn't start running out in the oven when it's starting to cook and make a huge mess. And it makes it probably easier to eat in the final rendition. I admit I have not quite eaten mine yet. It looks delicious, and I've heard from others that it's good, but I'll be enjoying mine next for dessert. So here's the final bit. Got that pinched down, and then at this point I'm just kind of smushing them extra, pinching a few more sides, and I'm going to paint it with that egg wash. So trying to get just the pastry and not the filling, and as little of the baking sheet as I can, although I'm not the neatest of painters when it comes to pastry brushes. So some of that ran off, and I just have to break it off the end pastry out of the oven so there's not awkward egg on it. But this gives it like a nice like sheen and a little bit of a yellower color coming out of the oven. I got like really fancy with this and used an egg. A lot of times I don't even want to use an egg, so I just do a milk wash instead, but it doesn't quite have the same effect. So there's my neurotically washing my hands again after handling egg. Just a little bit of like that coarse sprinkling sugar just to give it a nice little aesthetic touch. And then that's going to chill for a while the oven preheats to 375 degrees. So have to clean up my workspace now, get rid of all those terrible flour crumbs and butter bits everywhere. So I felt much better with a clean counter afterward. So once the oven is preheated, you take the galettes back out of the fridge and you pop them into the oven for 40 minutes or so. I think that's exactly how I made mine. So I decided to use the end of my filling to make a lovely dessert while I waited and eat it, which I'm going to show you what I did now. So I really jerry-rigged kind of a microwaved peach pie here. So using a little bit of butter, a little bit of panko crumbs, and some brown sugar, kind of all in equal proportions. I put them in the bottom of a hot darn, I cannot remember the name of that thing. Ramekin. So I microwaved it until it melted, and then I mixed it all together, and then I microwaved it again for probably 45 seconds or so until it was piping hot in the bottom. And then I added the remainder of that delicious peach filling. I could probably have just spooned it into my mouth, but this was a little bit fancier and made me feel less guilty. So I sprinkled a little bit of granola on top for some crunch, and there it is coming out of the oven or the microwave. It was piping hot. And I am cleaning up my space now. Again, I kind of cut these out of order so that it made more sense. And then coming out of the oven, you can see I ate my special little treat there. The ramekin is empty. Here come my galettes. Eventually. So they have this beautiful brown color, a little bit of a sheen from that egg wash. You can see the sprinkling sugar when you look close, and the filling is still bubbling from coming out of the oven. So they have to cool at this point, and obviously mine have been cooling for a while. They're room temperature now, but I bet they're really nice when they're just warm still from the oven. But we made these for the Feast of St. Catherine, so hopefully everyone enjoys today's feast. And it's April 29th. It's every year, and hopefully you can make these as well. Cheers!